12.5 million people around the world have friended Oreo, right? And what's interesting is there has never been a meeting that I've been to where somebody says, my brand is super awesome, everyone's going to love us on Facebook. Whether you're a cool, sexy brand, everyone says, I'm not sure anyone's going to want to be a friend of mine or a fan of mine because why would they? But here's a perfect example. I'm sure at one time some executive said, no one's going to be a friend of Oreo, it's just a cookie. Like, what are people going to talk about with Oreo for an entire year, let alone 3 years? They have a team of people, not one, thinking about what they're going to be writing to these 12.5 million people. This is kind of like, if you think about this, this is a media outlet for them now, right? There's 12.5 million people listening and waiting for questions like, a friend is someone who shares an Oreo. A best friend is someone who will share their last Oreo. There's no discount there. There's no go to your grocery store to pick up an Oreo. Almost 25,000 people responded to that comment. Did you guys hear recently what Oreo actually then started to do? They actually tried to break the Guinness Book of World Records, which they did, which was to see how many comments they can get or likes they can get on a single post. They got 75,000 comments in less than 24 hours around that. So here are some examples of travel companies that are starting to think about it on the platform today. Disney, I think Disneyland or Disney World has something like 5 million people on their Facebook page. That's probably way higher than their actual ComScore numbers on their website. Disney Cruise Line, Canada's Wonderland is one of the top Facebook pages in Canada. Lots of engagement taking place there on their wall. Again, these are the things that are customized, so they're sort of skinning it the way they want to. For those of you that are here from Expedia and Travelocity, it's interesting. Most of the industry has always been focused on bookings. The spend on digital has been, how do I spend money to increase my bookings? We're actually trying to take a step back and say, well, we get that your measurements around bookings, but how do you actually start to track other metrics around that? So companies like Expedia and Travelocity are actually now starting to do those things. Their measure of marketing success isn't how many bookings did my spend on Facebook generate, but is what's the engagement strategy look like so in the long term I can continue to engage, right? Because if you think about it, to a certain extent, a lot of this stuff is being commoditized, right? Like whether I go to Travelocity, Expedia, Hotels.ca, or to do any of these bookings, or Air Canada, it's all the same. But how do I get people to think about my brand or my destination before I even get to the booking phase? So we see a transformation in travel, not just being purely about acquisition as the opening stage, but how do I do something way before that stage actually happens? And I'll just summarize by saying marketers are organizing around people, and we know this is happening at scale given that 15 to 50 number. And at the end of the day, everything we do in life is better with friends. Forget about the online world today. Think about the things that you do and how many times you'd prefer to have a friend with you along the way. And the reason we know everything we do is better with friends is because 700 billion minutes are spent on Facebook a month. That's just on the web, and 30 billion pieces of content are shared on Facebook every single month. So we have the data that shows that friends is what drives behavior. So as you think about your brand strategy on Facebook or on the pages as well as your ad, think about it from how do I bring people's friends along as part of the marketing strategy as opposed to just engaging them alone. Because if you engage with them alone in isolation, it's kind of like we always did, right? It hasn't been transformational. And the companies that get this are really thinking about the friends influencing friends piece.